In developing our questions, we must understand what types of PPE are available. We need to protect our head, hands, our feet, our respirator tract, eyes, ears, our hearing, all that good stuff. Based on this, we can identify the types of hazards that may enter our body parts, and then we can start to develop questions around that. Typically, our questions will be somewhat general in nature. This will allow us to open up conversations with the person providing us a tour through the particular areas of the facility. I have included a list of questions that you can ask on your tour. You can download this form and follow along right here, but generally speaking, this will be a document that you can use as a sample during your tour. So let's start at the top, right up here at the top of our head. Are there any hazards above us which may fall and strike us? That's going to be one of our questions. This will indicate whether or not we need what? Hard hats. That's right. Then we will ask whether or not there are any noise hazards. This can include loud noises, sudden noises, or other low-frequency noises that may be over the action level of OSHA. The action level is 85. And so at that point, we have to measure and make sure that we are protected against that. Okay, this will help us determine whether or not hearing protection is required depending on the level of noise. We may need to get single or double hearing protection devices. Okay, and we'll get more into that. And it's definitely in our hearing conservation course. So if you haven't taken that one, take that. And there's a lot going on here, so we got to be mindful of this. Next, we'll want to take a look at the eyes. First thing we will ask is whether or not there is any flying debris. This will be different than any light rays that may be off of the spectrum, such as lasers or welding, which may be radiation type light or ultraviolet type light. But we will ask that question as well. The flying debris question will tell us whether or not we need safety glasses and whether or not we need side shields on our safety glasses, depending on the angle at which the flying debris comes in. Next, we will need to get into the chemical hazards that may affect our eyes and also our respiratory system. We will ask if there are any chemicals that will be poured and could be spilled on us or splashed upon us. This will indicate whether or not we need safety goggles. Following that, we will want to know if those chemicals produce any vapors. Again, this will be based on the particular task, but this will tell us whether or not a respirator is necessary. However, when it comes to the respiratory hazard, there is an elementary or cursory question we need to look further into, and that is on the safety data sheet. Going back to the eyes for a brief moment, we will ask if there are any ultraviolet, welding, or laser operations in effect. This will allow us to know if we need any shaded lenses to protect against these light sources. Talking about the chemicals, if we have chemicals that splash or spill or generate vapors, we will need to look at the safety data sheets and further determine the other types of personal protective equipment. But we can assume that we will need some type of chemical resistant boot, apron, gloves, and possibly a face shield. Again, we will dive deeper into these as we look at the particular tasks involved. As we move down the body, we're going to look at the hands. So some of the questions we would ask are sharp items present? Are vibration items present, such as jackhammer? Is there dirt, debris, or hot items that we need to pick up? What types of chemicals are we working with that require hand protection? All of these questions will determine the type of gloves that may be utilized. If needles are part of the equation, then we need some Kevlar puncture-resistant gloves. If we're working with knives and razor blades, then we need cut-resistant gloves. If we are picking up hot metal or working with very hot steel that's out in the sun all day, things like that, we may need some heat-resistant gloves. Moving back to our body, we need to take a look at things that may puncture our body or cut our body. These are things like chainsaws. Are they in use? If so, this may cut our legs. There may be other types of hydraulics that may pierce the legs or torso. In these cases, we will want to utilize chaps to prevent those types of cuts and punctures, or a leather apron. These same questions can be utilized to determine the types of boots that we may need to protect our feet. Some of the questions revolving around our feet will be, are we working around electrical hazards? If so, we will need electrical resistant boots. Are we working in areas with oil and other hydraulic fluids or liquids which may create slip hazards? Then we will need those slip resistant boots, and we need both types, oil and just general slip resistance. We should also ask people about whether or not they move heavy items. If things roll that are heavy, could roll off of a table that is heavy, operate forklifts. If they operate forklifts, they need the steel toe boots. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They also need the slip resistant because the hoses can break and leak hydraulic fluid, and all of that is in an area where they may slip and fall. So in this case, we should have steel toe, composite toe, or some other type of safety toe protective footwear. We may also ask whether or not certain items may roll and catch feet in and between other items. Some of these items are well over 75 pounds, and in that case, we will want to make sure that we have a metatarsal guard for our boots. In the case of security and footwear, a lot of times they're running and responding to fights or security breaches, and in those cases, we will want some type of footwear that protects the ankle. And so this may be a higher protective boot or tennis shoe, something like that, that has the ankle support. And then we also want to know if they respond to first aid incidents. And if they do, they may need something to deal or provide a protective barrier against blood. This could be our latex or nitrile gloves. And again, these are all of the types of things that we'll be looking at. Our next one is really serious, and that is the asbestos, lead, silica, things like that. If they perform any hazardous waste operations or hazmat cleanups, if so, they're going to need Tyvek suits and full body protection along with respirators. We can ask also if painting or other chemical spraying operations such as pesticides exist. If this is the case, we're definitely going to need respirators, maybe some face shields, things like this. These are the basic questions that I usually start with as we approach our tour. Let's take a look at how to conduct the tour itself.